What is going on, Bucs fans and CFP fans? Evan Wanish here, co-host of the Cannon Fire podcast, and I'm not alone today. As you can see, it's almost like a normal episode of CFP, as I have my other co-host Rhett Matthew alongside with me. And today we're going to be talking about the players to watch for this week's matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And it's a massive game for the Bucs. Like, they basically have to win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. If they lose, pretty much all hopes of the playoffs are gone. So with that being said, there's going to be a lot of players to watch and a lot of players that need to step up. And the first player we're going to talk about is a player who made headlines this week, or maybe not he made headlines personally, but was in the news this week. And that's wide receiver Chris Godwin. Obviously, Godwin coming off a game where didn't record a catch, did not record a catch. Obviously had that nice rushing touchdown against the Panthers, but didn't record a catch. There were some things that Chris Godwin's wife had posted on social media. There was a whole social media firestorm, and then Dave Canales, basically went up to the podium and said, look, me and Chris share the frustration. He should be more involved in this offense, and I agree. I think, and I've said it on the podcast many times, Chris Godwin needs to be more involved in this offense. He needs to be a player who, it's not just the Mike Evans show. It's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You're paying Chris Godwin a lot of money, so Chris Godwin, I think, is the first player to watch. He's a guy who, if they could get him going, I think it could be a good day for the Bucs offense. But what do you think about Chris Godwin being a player that the Bucs offense needs to get involved?
Yeah, we got a reminder of the kind of player he is on that 19-yard rushing touchdown last week. He's a guy who's taken some carries before in a Buccaneers uniform, but he's going to do whatever he has to do for his team. And I agree that the Bucs have to do a better job of working him into the offense. It runs better when both him and Mike Evans are allowed to have big days. It has been the Mike Evans show recently. And obviously, hats off to Mike for getting his 1,000 yards for the 10th season in a row. But you got to let Chris Godwin show you the type of player that he is. The Bucs are already paying him north of $20 million a year. On the season, 53 receptions for 606 yards. Only one touchdown. But this is a guy who has had over 1,000 yards from the wide receiver 2 spot before in Tampa Bay. So it's going to be crucial to get him going this week.
And another player that I think is crucial to play well, and it's a player who he's banged up. And look, Chris Godwin's also a little bit banged up. Want to note that as well. But Tristan Worfs, the left tackle, Tristan Worfs, is a little bit banged up. He's not 100% healthy. That being said, if you're out there, you're expected to play, and you're expected to play well. And Tristan Worfs so far has not been playing as well as he was earlier in the season. Injured I believe, his ankle in the San Francisco game, ended up coming back in that game and then allowed a sack. Could clearly see he was really hobbling. And then in Indy against the Colts, he allowed 2 sacks, including the final sack, which was a strip sack of Baker Mayfield, basically ending that game. And Tristan Worfs has not been great. He got injured again against Carolina, so he popped up on the injury report this week. He practiced. It sounds like he's good to go to play. I don't think there's any question that he's going to play, but Tristan Worfs is a guy who the Buccaneers need to, get healthy, but also need to play better when he's out there, because he's such an important piece of that offensive line. He's easily their best offensive lineman. He's one of their best players on the team. And this is a guy who they need to be productive from. You can't let Atlanta's pass rush tee off on Baker Mayfield. It could be a long day for the Bucs offense if Baker Mayfield can't get the time. So what do you think of Tristan Wirfs' health status? And also, what are your expectations for him for this Sunday?
Yeah, if we know one thing about Big 74 is he's a warrior. It's going to take a lot for him to not be out there at the left tackle position. Now, with that being said, a win this Sunday for the Bucs is also going to go a long way for his status the rest of the season. He's been playing through injury, and as long as the Bucs have an open door at the postseason, I can't find a reason to believe they would want to shut him down. But if they lose this Sunday to Atlanta and you fall behind in the NFC South, as that playoff door closes, maybe look for the Bucs to potentially sideline Tristan Wirfs, because he is that important to this offensive line, where if he's already playing through injury, if you don't have anything to play for, doesn't make a lot of sense to have him out there being worn down even further. But I am hopeful for him to go and play above average, because even though he hasn't been 100%, he's still a damn good left tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to switch it over to the defensive side of the football. We named two offensive players. We're going to name two defensive players before we get into our X factor, which will be at the end of the video. We're going to start off on the defensive line here with Keke Coutee. Coutee, who has been, really, really good for the Buccaneers this season, and in limited action as well. Obviously missed all of training camp and the preseason. Played the first week, only played a couple of snaps, then missed a couple more games. Is now back and playing really well for the Buccaneers, has been one of the better defensive rookies in the league. I believe he got Defensive Rookie of the Month for the month of November, so really big honor there for Keke Coutee, and he's a guy who they're going to need to step up. And at Atlanta, their offensive line, particularly, against the run, look, the Bucs, Vita Vea popped up on the injury report this week, and he didn't participate in practice at all. He's listed as questionable, but if Vita Vea can't go, Keke Coutee is a guy who has to step up, both in the pass and run game. He has to be able to, it's going to be easier said than done. The Falcons' rushing attack is really good, but Keke Coutee is going to have to be a guy who steps up here for the Buccaneers, especially if Vita Vea is out. He becomes 10 times more important if Vita Vea is out. So that is the reason why Keke Coutee is a player to watch. So what have you seen from the 19th overall pick this past year? And what are your expectations for him on Sunday?
3 sacks so far on the season, top 3 in the NFL among rookies for tackles for loss, right up there with Jalen Carter and Philly. He's having a great season. And like you said, playing on limited snaps this year, missed a good chunk of the first quarter of the season for Tampa Bay, but he has been great since he's been back. And it seems like every week, every game is that much more important for Keke Coutee to prove that he has the staying power as a Buccaneers first-round pick. He's been playing well, and the pressure is obviously on. For the Falcons, they're not 100% on the offensive line either. Desmond Ridder prone to mistakes if the pressure can get there. And without Vita Vea, the pressure is going to start from the interior, and it's going to start from guys like Logan Hall and especially Keke Coutee this week. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's a big part of their present, but also their future. So it'll be fun to watch him. Another person that's actually from the same draft class that could be part of the present and the future is SAS Dennis. Now, SAS Dennis sounds like he's going to play. Obviously missed last week with an illness. Sounds like he's going to be good to go for this week. And he's another guy who, with Devin White being ruled out, it's probably going to be SAS Dennis and Lavonte David as the two linebackers. So Dennis is a guy who is going to have to play well, especially in the run game. He's going to have to be, committed to stopping the run because the Falcons are going to run the football. They're just going to, especially if a guy like Vita Vea is out. So puts even more strain on your linebackers to fill in those gaps and be able to stop the run there. So SAS Dennis, the young player out of Pitt, a fellow Pitt, right? A fellow Pitt Panther, is going to have to step up in this one. So also, this could be a little bit of a preview for 2024 potentially. If the Buccaneers bring Lavonte David back, have SAS Dennis there, and don't bring Devin White back, could be a preview of 2024. So what do you think about the combo of Lavonte David and SAS Dennis? And then also, are you hopeful that SAS Dennis can come in and show some flashes of improvement here?
Yeah, we talked a lot on the podcast about how different this linebacker room could look for the Bucs next year. And this is going to be important for SAS Dennis to prove, again, just like Keke Coutee, that he's another hit in that 2023 draft class for Jason Light, and he can maybe step up and be the guy here over the next few seasons as the Bucs figure out what the next wave of that linebacker room looks like. Lavonte David going to be a free agent. I don't know if he'll be back. It's one of those things where he was on a 1-year deal, had a pretty solid season. Does not show any signs of slowing down, at 30 plus years old. He could come back and play just as well, I think, for another season. My gut says he will, but if he doesn't, you talk about the departure of not only Devin White, but then Lavonte David on top of it. We saw how thin the Bucs were at linebacker just a week ago after KJ Britt left the game. SAS Dennis wasn't available. So these are massively important reps for SAS Dennis this week. But I think between him and Lavonte David, we've said it for years, Lavonte David has this effect on the other linebacker to maybe make the guy look better than he is. So I'm hoping that for SAS Dennis this week, these are important reps. He can learn a lot from 54, and he can step up and play well.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely is. And without further ado, we're going to get right into our X Factor, who is basically the player who is most important to watch this week and most important to the Buccaneers' success to win the game. If this player has a bad game, Bucs probably aren't winning. So that player is none other than quarterback Baker Mayfield. Now, Mayfield last time against the Falcons had a crucial late interception. Can't happen this time, right? This game is too important. It's too critical for the Buccaneers to win. Mayfield has to play a clean game and trying to avoid, I believe, a 5th straight game with a turnover. Now, he was so good early in the season at limiting those turnovers, limiting those interceptions. It's become sort of a trend rate lately. So you're hoping that Mayfield, if, given the time and everything, he can find Mike Evans, he can find Chris Godwin, he can find, Rachaad White, Keke Coutee, and even Trey Palmer, spread the ball around, make good decisions. I think that's important as well as decision making. Some of it's been bad luck, but I think his decision making has been lacking a little bit as well. But he's this week's X factor simply because the ball's going to be in his hands. I think when it matters the most, I think the Buccaneers have faith in Baker Mayfield, and I think that against a pretty stingy Falcons defense, so I mean they got a pretty solid secondary now. AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah, 2 talented corners. Jesse Bates has been arguably one of the best safeties in the NFL. I think he has 5 interceptions already, which as a safety, that's pretty crazy, including 1 pick 6. So Jesse Bates has been fantastic, and Baker Mayfield is going to have to protect the ball and play efficient offense in this one, which is what he was doing for the first 4 games or so, and the Buccaneers were 3-1. So they can get back to that brand of style of football. I think it would greatly benefit them, and I think it would benefit Mayfield as well. But he's a guy who absolutely has to play well for the Buccaneers to have a shot to win. What are your thoughts on Mayfield this week?
Yeah, with everything we know about this matchup, what's on the line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how this is basically a playoff game, your margin of error is razor thin. I mean, for the Bucs, one mistake against a stingy Atlanta defense, whether it's a fumble, it's an interception for Baker Mayfield, potentially a 5th straight game with a turnover, that could be the difference. These division games are tough. And I know the offense has been playing better, but for Baker, this has become a bit of a habit lately. And we talk a lot about the potential success that this Bucs offense could have, getting Chris Godwin back into the game plan. Baker Mayfield's going to have a lot to do with that. So protecting the football is going to have to be priority number 1. And, making sure you get the ball to your receivers this week and not throw it to the other team. That's going to be huge. I think whoever wins the turnover battle this week will win the game.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that's very, very valid point. But with that being said, let me know if you guys are watching any players this week, anybody that we did not mention. So let me know who you guys are looking out for this week. Who do you think needs to step up? Do you have a different X factor than we do? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, please don't forget to check out the game preview pod, which is available on YouTube and anywhere you can listen to a podcast now. But with that being said, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and go Bucs.